Welcome to AI Month 2023. My name is Petra Vorsteher. I'm co-founder of AI Hamburg and have the great pleasure to welcome you to an exciting day with 7 amazing panels and 23 expert speakers. Our session now is on generative AI in the retail sector, disrupting existing business models. And I have the pleasure to pass you on to our moderator, Oliver Gottfried, who will introduce our panelists to you.
Thank you very much, Petra. So first of all, my name is Oliver. I'm the investment director at AI Fund. And it's my great pleasure to introduce, first of all, Elisabeth Laurent. She is the co-founder of Oxolo and also the chief commercial officer, as well as Jochen Emig, who is the founder of Onse. And I think it's best because those guys are actually really fascinating speakers that I would give the floor first to Elisabeth, and maybe you can make a short introduction of yourself, introduce Oxolo, and then I would pass it on to Jochen after that.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here today. So we founded Oxolo 3 years ago. We're a Hamburg-based startup. We have between 30 and 40 people, depends who you count. A super international team, highly diverse, and we develop generative AI with a specific use case for e-commerce. So with us, you can generate commercials or ads or any sort of marketing material just based on a URL of the product. That's it from my side, and then back to Oliver.
Yeah, and I would directly pass it on to Jochen. Maybe Jochen, a short introduction to yourself and to Onse.
Hi, yeah, my name is Jochen. I founded Onse in 2017. Onse is actually Japanese for speech, so we work in a generative speech AI. We've been working on it since 2017 when I won the IBM Watson AI competition here in Germany. And our pretty much focus are language models and now, of course, large language models.
Thank you very much, Jochen. With that, I would like to start the session. And as the topic is really disrupting business models in the retail sector based on generative AI, I think Oxolo has really developed a tremendous business model around how you can put text into a video format. And Elisabeth, I would pass it on to you. Maybe you can explain it a little bit, what you're doing, maybe introduce your product and your business model a little bit, and how you plan to disrupt the retail sector.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen really quick and open my deck. All right, so generative AI in retail, is it going to be disrupted? How are we going to disrupt it? There are lots of topics involved. So first and foremost, I want to give you another little blurb on Oxolo, what we do, and then maybe a little bit of an overview on AI, generative AI, what's happening at the moment, and how that all applies to retail, really. So that is us. Like I mentioned earlier, we are a Hamburg-based startup. This is us at a recent offsite in Barcelona, where we tried to paint and try to do something non-techy. The subject was painting and drinking, really. And again, we are Hamburg-based. We founded in 2020, so roughly 3 years ago. We have 30 full-time employees and another 10 to 20 freelancers. We have over 10 nationalities. So again, we speak 15 languages, and we are fully remote. So most of our engineers are based in Germany. I would say 90%, but they're also in other places. So where is AI now and what has happened? So to give you a little bit of an overview, I think it's easier to have a historic view on it. And it all started with a Turing test back in the 50s when the definition of AI started as something that a human cannot differentiate from a machine anymore. Then AI was born. The term AI was actually coined in 55. Eliza, one of the first speaking models, chatbots sort of started, came around that was even earlier. Then a big period when nothing, or a long period while nothing was really happening, called the AI winter, happened. And the next thing was Deep Blue came along, and then Siri came along. And that was the first actual text to speech or speech to text model where Apple actually managed to synthesize voices. And little fun fact, I thought it's quite interesting to see who's behind here. That's this lovely lady. So she's in talk shows in the US a lot and talks about her experience being the most known synthetic voice on the planet, really. So after Siri, Watson came, IBM Watson came. By the way, happy that you won that German competition. Alexa came, as everybody knows. And Tay, that was a chatbot by Microsoft that didn't really work out, was also trained by online internet data, and quickly became a very racist problem. And so within, I think, 24 hours, they actually switched them off. And AlphaGo, you know, probably as most of you know, a game, an Asian game that is very strategic, was won by a machine. ChatGPT came in 2023. And that's really now the development of AI. It wasn't linear anymore. It started to become exponential. Actually, ChatGPT was launched or developed much earlier. Our company, we're working together with OpenAI for 3 years now. So, but the actual consumer product launched in November. Actually, that's incorrect. So November 2022. And then BART obviously came, and the Russians launched GigaChat. So we are now in the era of generative AI. And generative AI's primary use cases is just content, or not just, but mainly content creation. So you can create or generate images. Leading is probably Stable Diffusion. You can generate text, such as ChatGPT. I think those are the biggest LLMs for text. And then video runways, Gen 2 is coming, or has launched for people who have access. And that's very interesting, as video is also our use case at Oxolo. And there you have a rocket launching. So how relevant is AI in retail, really? So retail has, especially over the past couple of years and primarily during COVID, retail became highly competitive, and the margins are shrinking. And that's due to several reasons, but there were supply chain problems, and also the globalization doesn't help. So, you know, as everybody knows, like especially in e-commerce, products are available on a global scale, and margins are shrinking. But generally, you can say that in electronics, you have margins of like 25%, in food it's 15%, and online retail is 42%, but it's simply not enough. And so people try to use AI or try to implement AI to help this. And another need is to differentiate, because as I mentioned, the market has really become so big, or the world has become so accessible, that there's so many similar products out there that it's difficult for consumers or customers or users to really find different products. And also the need to personalize. So this is also the biggest trend is really personalization and hyper targeting your customer or your own user. And obviously the need to automate, because at the end of the day, it's very difficult for companies to scale at a big level. So automation is the only answer. So what AI is there really in retail? Like, what are the solutions? One of the main cases is really the product recommendations. So everything you see at Amazon, when you have a little product being recommended to you based on what you just bought, it's algorithms checking your purchase history, your like location, your profile, so your gender, and everything else they can get their hands on data-wise. And out of that, they recommend products. The next thing that's very important for retail is inventory management. So when to buy new inventory, how to manage inventory, actually to have a good overview and correlate all that data with like seasonality and holidays. Very important for retail, really. Another very interesting case is our chatbots, because a lot of retail, or a lot of money in retail goes into customer care. And big retailers are trying to mitigate or are trying to decrease the communication because it costs a lot of money, it costs a lot of resources, and they need to have usually a lot of customer service agents sitting in call centers answering questions. So chatbots are improving by the minute, and they're trying to solve the main questions. Like 80% of our questions are something similar to, where's my order? When is it coming? Do you have a tracking code? Something like that. So chatbots are really an industry and growing steadily. The next thing is product design, which I think is a very interesting case, because this is where the generative AI comes into place. So when you can, like, if we ever reach the point where you can just tell a system or a tool to design all your next products, then I think we have reached quite a milestone, and we'll have very interesting products. And yield management obviously is another important aspect in retail. So and the last but not least, and this is the most important aspect, is definitely AI generated content, which includes text, video, and images. And this is so important because the marketing budget is usually between 6 and 14% of all retail revenue, really, and the share is increasing because, again, like I said, it's tougher and tougher for the companies to reach their customers. And the content is absolutely necessary for social media and all the different platforms to be visible and to sell. So that's where generative AI really comes into action. Let me show you a little example. So this is for anyone who hasn't seen it, I doubt it, but maybe you haven't. I want to show you a quick example of what ChatGPT looks like. And this is how you can super easily generate text. You put in a prompt, and the prompt is sort of a command, like I did earlier today. So if you see what I put in, I actually addressed ChatGPT as ChatGPT to explain generative AI, hit enter, and within seconds, it spits out an answer. And this is not only, simple questions like that, but they can generate entire presentations, write essays, and so forth. Probably all of you have heard that. But this is very, very relevant for creating marketing material in the retail space. So AI can also create images. So if you look at that was a prompt in 2022. So that's actually not even a year ago. When you asked to create a woman with a red coat, you would get kind of nightmarish images that look slightly crippled. But today, it has improved so dramatically and so drastically that you get perfectly naturally looking people as a result. So I think this just the stark contrast between the two of them shows you where this is going. Another good example of product design is actually, this is a company of a friend of mine. They're called Tastillery. It's also a company in Hamburg. They produce their own liquor. And they had, for one of their latest releases, they had the entire design and everything, the mood boards, the product design, the entire campaign. It was all generated by Midjourney. So they really liked it and kept it like that. They didn't change anything what the AI generated. And as a result, they said that they're 3 times faster, and they have a much higher output on their creative side because they don't have to take care of things like that anymore. And they were very excited about it because they really did like the result. And so I do too. You guys should check them out on Instagram. They have a very, very good branding and marketing. Tastillery, by the way. The downside of AI generated images or imagery is definitely that it sometimes creates a little bit of bad results. And a big problem that generative AI has in terms of imagery is hands. So for whatever reason, the systems can't really show the 3D aspects of hands. And so all the hands they generate look horrible. Not all of them, but the majority. I have another few examples. it just looks, yeah, again, that also, it just looks nightmarish. You know, you look at it at first view, it looks okay, but then it looks kind of wrong. And so it's something that's going to be worked at and improved for sure, but at the moment it's tough. Now this is images. The next category, so text was sort of easy, and images is even more difficult, and it's amazing if you think about the results that it's you know, emitting right now. But the next level is video, and completely to generate a video based on a few prompts is extremely difficult. And so the status quo at the moment is not very pretty. And I want to show you a beer ad where the AI was just prompted to generate an advertising clip for beer. Here you go. So as you can see, it looks kind of okay, then kind of weird at first sight, and with every second it gets worse, you know. Just take a look at it. So proportions aren't right, hands definitely aren't right, and then the fire is all over the place, and then it's just out of control. And I think it's disturbing to look at it, to be honest. I'm not sure how other people feel about it, but that's how it is at the moment, and that's where we sort of come into place with Oxolo, because I also want to show you what we do. We also create text to video, so the technology is called text to video, and but what we do is a little more low-key, I would say. We can just create an ad out of a simple URL. So I created a quick screenshot. This is how it looks like. So you just paste your website or the link of the product you're trying to sell onto our website. And I just did a quick video this morning. You choose the target platform, your age group, the language, and then you create a video. And just a few moments later, this is how it looks like. So the video then is ready.
Looking for a stylish and protective pair of sunglasses
Hope you can hear it.
to keep up with your fashion-forward lifestyle? Look no further than the Sojo's vintage oversized square sunglasses for women.
And the trick is that the video then you can edit freely, you can choose different actors, different colors, you can put new text in it, new media, change the voices, and we have about 80 different languages, so every language is possible. I actually just generated a video in Swiss German, which is technically not another language, but maybe yes, a little bit, and add the video to your listing, because video content is highly relevant in the whole sales cycle and in retail in general. And the reason for it is mainly that video content just has a much higher conversion. So if you, as a customer, go onto a website and look into any video content, you're 80% more likely to purchase it, to buy. You also have a 95% better content retention as a human, if you compare text with video, because the human brain is just more interested into visual content versus having to read and decipher. It's sort of a comparison between fast food and raw carrots you would have to chew. So typically people prefer fast food because it's just easier. And this is what I think is also very interesting, is that all the big platforms such as Google, Instagram, and everyone else, they really like video at the moment. So if you have video content as an e-commerce seller on your website, you're 53 times more likely to be found versus if you don't have any. So in general, video is the highest and best performing form of content really there is, by far. So the conclusions in general are that AI is definitely a lever to reduce spending on one side, to be more efficient, and reduce spending on the content creation side, which is a big chunk of the marketing budget. and definitely increase revenue, because with like more engaging content, you have much better conversion on your e-commerce sites, and you drive traffic. The other thing is, it kind of like shifts, I think within the companies, it shifts the focus a little more to the strategic side, maybe also a little more to other topics that prior, like of people who prior had to focus on simple content creation, which is also not that much fun, I think. To write content for websites, for instance, is not that exciting. But what I mentioned earlier, it's very far away from being foolproof. There are a lot of undesired outcomes, as you saw in the imagery, as you saw in the videos, and even ChatGPT has deficiencies, obviously. So there's always got to be a human in the loop to double check any kind of content before it goes out. The other thing is, the other problem with generative AI and also in retail is that the regulatory framework and the regulatory situation gets more and more complicated. So you have to, as a company, you have to navigate all these different frameworks in different countries, in different languages. And now, as the EU is proposing this AI Act, it's going to be even more complicated, because you need to label certain things and declare, and most likely need to have a compliance officer inside the company only monitoring AI compliance, sort of. And so it gets more and more complex and complicated over time. And another big thing is definitely also that generative AI, and also in retail and in general, brings up these ethical implications, because a lot of the algorithms are trained on biased data. So if you generate an image of a CEO, for instance, you will always see a white male and nobody with a more diverse background. And again, that's based on the training data, and that's very difficult to change. So ideally, large training data has to be made available for the big companies to train on, where people from different backgrounds are involved, like ethicists, and with people with all kinds of ideas to really ensure a very diverse data set at the end. And that's it from my side. Here's a link, actually, or a QR code to the deck. So in case you want to download it, you can just scan the QR code and then you get the PDF. And that also has active links, for one, to my LinkedIn, and for two, to the article on that weird video you saw that I thought that might be interesting. So thank you very much, and over to Oliver.
Yes, thank you so much, Elisabeth. Really appreciate it. And I think that actually was a really great example on how generative AI can also be used. I think most people know really the chat part, but like really having the chat to video part, and we just saw it really briefly, what you just showed us, the demo video. I mean, it's really fantastic. With just like a little bit of text, even prefix text, you can create such amazing videos. So in case we have some more time later, I would love to ask you some more questions on that later. But now first, we switch to Jochen. And Jochen, maybe you can also introduce how your business model is trying to disrupt the retail area, because I know that OnSite also has fantastic technology behind and a fantastic product. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we really focus on AI modeling and creating AI models for our clients. Here we focus on creating custom models. So as we saw earlier, we can all use ChatGPT. We saw all these technologies, and they are really helpful, because when you use a technology like ChatGPT, when you have ChatGPT or any GPT technology for that matter, create your marketing material, for example, it will sound the same. So the problems many companies have is that when they generate marketing material, they have different writers, they have different teams, and the message might be the same, but the outcome and the wording might differ. So what we do, we create custom models for our clients, where we really focus on creating the model as the primary, I would say almost team member, to write all the marketing materials and to then talk as the company. So the AI becomes part of the team. The regular marketing team creates all the content. They think of everything they want to promote. They give the training text to the AI models. And then the AI models rephrase these to be really on point and from the conversational point. So doesn't matter who reads it. It always seems like it comes from a single source because it comes from a single model. And this really helps brands to go ahead. The other thing we currently focus on is recommendation engines. So while everybody thinks about chatting with these systems, we focus a lot on recommendation engines where we help users, help companies guide their users towards what they might be interested in. We have projects here in the entertainment business where our clients have entertainment platforms such as online, movie and TV services, and we really try to help them, the end customers, find what they should watch next. In the past, recommendations were based on what you've watched previously, and meta tags that were part of the movie. Meta tags might have been actors, might have been directors, but the data actually was fairly small. Now with large language models, we can actually analyze the whole movie and can really get a lot more information out of, and then create way better recommendations that match. We can't only do this for movies. We can always do this for anything that's being sold. So we input all the marketing material that is already out there. We put all the technical things of all the products that might be interesting, and we can give a far better recommendation to the user than existing technologies. Yes, so this is what we currently focus on.
Well, that's really fantastic. And maybe Jochen, a short follow-up question on that one. Actually, what do you think are the best practices for implementing large language models in retail marketing strategies, such as content creation and personalization? What is your take on that one, and what are you doing to implement that?
So as I mentioned, one important part is these large language models. So coming from the technical point of view, the large language models are always trained to actually generate content. And what we do in some ways, we also tame these models. So it's very important to look at the output, how the output is presented, to do checks on the output, to make sure that anything the large language models generate matches your criteria. Obviously, we often say the models are only as good as the data you provide to the model. So the more data you can provide to the model about your clientele, the better the outcomes can be. So here, when we look back on marketing in the past, I used to work in a online marketing company where we would build technical backends for click ads, and a lot of people did A/B testing or ABC testing to see what banners work the best on a generic consumer. So here you really had you looked at the whole population and said, okay, this banner works 60% of the people click it. This is fantastic. And let's just run this banner after a lot of testing. Today, we can create custom banners for every single user. We no longer have to group users. We no longer have to find out which is the best. So we try to get as much data about the users, about the users' preferences. We then can create custom banners on the fly, as we just saw. We can create images, we can create text, and we can create a custom banner for the person on the fly and have a way higher chance of a click that we pay a lot of money for. So companies pay a lot of money to get their information in front of a customer. So why not use generative AI to really get the information that the customer wants to enable the click? And the other thing I already mentioned is be consistent about all your marketing channels. So with generative AI, you really have the possibility to think about all your outgoing messages and use the same models. So we use models that we train not only for, we can use it for email content, we can use it for short content, we can use it for social media. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it really helps to it seemed coming from a single source, which is usually not possible, because if you look in companies, currently these departments are all misaligned. You have a social media department that not necessarily works with the sales department, that doesn't necessarily work with the website department. They're all individual departments, and therefore you sometimes get this misalignment. With using large language models to refine all outgoing communications, you can really align this communication. And it seems like a single person wrote all the content.
Thank you, Jochen, so much. That was actually super insightful. Before I pose my next question, there was a question in the chat for you, Jochen. So what kind of model would you recommend for event and ticket recommendations? What would be your suggestion for this?
So we use GPT-based models. There are a lot of options. So we custom train our models. There's two ways to do this. You can either, depending on the area, you can create your own model from scratch, or we use existing models and we fine-tune them. But the technology behind it is generative pre-trained transformer models. The same technology that is behind GPT, which is the ChatGPT, which is the synonym for it.
It's interesting, and I just want to have a follow-up question on that, because you mentioned that. So besides that, why would you only go for this kind of language model or this platform? Because I mean, OpenAI is now in everybody's mouth, but there's so many other large language models which are actually also pretty decent. So why or how would you evaluate when to use what kind of large language model?
So let me take that a step back. OpenAI was one of the pioneers of generative pre-trained transformer models, but that doesn't mean they belong to them. It's an open technology that anybody can use and can build. So when I said we train our own models, we use the same concept as OpenAI. We use generative pre-trained models, transformer models, but we don't necessarily use OpenAI's models. So we can create our own models from scratch. Obviously, it's also be open about it. OpenAI is the market leader. They have massive models. They're really big. They have a lot of experience. However, depending on the use case, you can create your own, or you can go, here, if you want to use a German company for your model provider, Aleph Alpha, they use the same technology behind it, which is called GPT. So the reason everybody thinks that OpenAI owns everything GPT is because they were very good in naming their products, ChatGPT or GPT 3.5. But GPT by itself is a name of a technology. They just used it for their naming as well.
Thank you so much. That was super informative. And before I want to open it on a discussion between you and Elisabeth, I have one more question for you, because I know you really come from the technical side. I mean, I know what you studied at Harvard, so it was really fantastic what you were doing there. But I just want to see, how do you think has the field of generative AI evolved over time, and what have been the most, and with that focus, and maybe you can keep it short, and what have been the most significant advancements in the development of large language models? Because I know there are some, but maybe you could just focus on the most important ones from a technical perspective, and then I would open it up between you and Elisabeth.
So I loved your presentation earlier, because with the history of AI, because from a consumer aspect, I completely agree with it. But engineers never sleep in the winter, and a lot of things happened during that time. And really, generative AI, as we know, it started in the 80s, 90s. It all moved up to today, where we had this big bang. But even in I think for us to look at, in the beginning of the 2010s, one of the big things that came around was vert to vector, which is the first time it was a big revolution in the natural language processing part, because we really had the first time statistical models, how we can use wording and start how to vectorize everything, and how to use wording and how to create models behind it. The second big revolution behind it, I think, was after that was in the 1920s when we, in the beginning, when we had segment-to-segment models where we, started creating models to encode and decode, and started doing embeddings for vectors, and really started creating more on a database level here. Then with this, we created better searches. We started doing semantic search, where we looked at not only about the actual words, but the combination of words, which then gave us the possibility to look at content. So this is the next big step we had. And then in the late 2000s, we really had mid to late 2020s, we had a boom. And this is what really enabled us to do. And a big part of the boom is actually not the AI by itself, but it's also the compute power that we were given access to. So most people talk about all these models and everything that we now have. Some of the concepts have been around for quite a while, but we never had the compute power as much as available to companies and especially startups as we have today. Especially when we started training models on our first generation graphics cards we had as a startup were 1080 Ti graphics cards. They were from 2017. We don't even run them today anymore because of a power cost to output vector comparison. So the infinite increase in the last years in compute power that we have as available is one of the big factors why we have these models that we have today, and why this is going to go even faster in the future. The second part are two technologies. One we heard earlier was BERT, which was introduced by researchers from Google. BERT was the first time where we had the models, large language models are depicted into layers, and BERT went back and forward. So that was a big difference. Usually you only went from input to output. BERT gave you the capability of going back and forward. And the other model, the other big technology we obviously talk about is generative pre-trained transformers, or general transformer technologies. And these just revolutionized our AI, for the main reason is that previously how we trained AI is we labeled everything. So we had to give the AI a lot more information. We labeled a lot of information, or we labeled everything. Labeling is very expensive. It means that humans have to read over it. Humans have to analyze it. With these new technologies, how we train the models is we give them a large data dump, unlabeled, just put it in there and give a very small fraction in addition to it that is labeled. And the models are then be able to use all of the data based on the label data.
Oh, got it. Thank you so much for that one. Then let's jump into the last, because I think we only have like 5 minutes left. And I think what the topic of this panel also was is like really creating really like impactful business models around generative AI. So let me briefly share our perspective as a fund. So when we invest, it's always like there are obviously certain KPIs we have to follow. But if you look at especially AI, I mean, you always look at data strategy or your data advantage and your algorithm advantage and algorithm strategy. So I think this is actually just like a short-term advantage you might have. In the long term, I think it's super important that you also really focus on other aspects, which are especially focused on the application layer. And I think that's exactly what you guys are doing with your companies. You identify the problem in the market, especially in a workflow, and then you apply generative AI. I mean, Elisabeth just pointed it out really clearly what she is doing with her demo. That is like a perfect example on how you can actually leverage generative AI. Do you have any suggestions for the panelists or for the people in the audience who are here that they can do something also, like how can they develop this kind of business model? That would be just great to have, to get your opinions on that, and we can maybe discuss it all together. Maybe Elisabeth, I would pass it on to you.
That's a difficult question. If I knew, I would have done that so far. But honestly, I think another, another thing to look at it or to do is to get very familiar with the different tools and with the different technologies in itself, and sort of become, I don't want to say a prompt engineer, that sounds ridiculous, but become very sort of very fluent with it in a way. And I think that's that's a business model in itself. So any future business model will always be like a layer, because big tech is going to develop all the big models. NVIDIA is going to develop like all the big computer vision stuff, like, I mean, even Google, now. So all the big companies will have their own proprietary tech that will be with APIs easy to use, and then you need to create layers on top to become a service for other people or to mitigate the pain. And so it's just like building any other application or other tech. You basically look for problems and for pain that you can solve with it, So off the bat, I don't know any other business model right now, but like I would go into that direction really.
Jochen, what about your take on that one?
So in our team, we made it a mission to use as much AI on a daily basis as we can in each individual department. So for example, all programmers have access to GitHub Copilot, which is based on a Microsoft product. It's based on GPT from OpenAI, and it helps you generate code. So you work together with an AI to write your programs. Our designers we only use generative images for all our publications, so that they get better familiars. So my point to everybody out there is, all the AI tools are out there. Instead of using Google, Google will release something in the near future, but they have a private beta right now. But use Bing chat search. Start using all these AI in your daily life now, because they're coming faster than you think. And when you start using AIs in your daily life, all of a sudden you will start seeing solutions for problems that other people haven't seen yet. Also, by using AIs in your daily tasks, you can really get a better understanding on how they work. You can also see their shortfalls, because today's AIs have a lot of shortfalls. And by knowing their shortfalls, you might be able to work around the solution and create better systems without these shortfalls, or how to solve these shortfalls.
Thank you. And I think actually that was actually a really important point from both of you, because what we also see from an investment perspective, I think and you mentioned that both, it's super important, especially also business founders, they have this kind of technology fluency. This is super important. So just having like a technical founder who really understands the technology well, I think isn't enough. I think also the business founder needs to be aware of the technology, what it can do, and how we can leverage it, and how we can build a business model around that. And I think this is something really important. A second thing I would like to point out here, I think is also crucial, is that especially in this kind of times where there's so many changes, so many innovations in such a short time, I think really the technological founders, especially the CTOs, they really need to stay up to date. What is going on? What are the recent papers? What are the recent developments? I think this is really crucial for success to really great and sustainable business models in that case. I think actually it's just exactly right now 45. I think that's a great timing. Thank you so much, Elisabeth. Thank you so much, Jochen, for your insights. I really hope all the audiences appreciated your knowledge and your insights on this kind of topic. And I guess feel free to connect with me, and I guess also with Elisabeth and with Jochen over LinkedIn if you have some questions. With that, Petra, do you want to say some last words, or should we end it here?
Yes, Oliver, thank you so much for the great panel. Thank you, Elisabeth. Thank you, Jochen. And we all understand now that generative AI is the key, and a lot of business models will evolve around it. And thank you for your participation of making this a great event, and see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.